We're going to call to order the City of Columbus City Council meeting for tonight, May 27th, 2026, and the time is 6 p.m. And the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody stand up.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The third item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. We'd like to make a change tonight. Down under item C, we're going to move Fishing for Life CUP down to item number 3, and we're going to bring up Anoka County Sheriff's Office report to item number 2. So I'll make a motion to move to adopt the agenda for May 27th, 2026, a City Council meeting.
Scott, I'll second.
We got a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. Jenny?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Aaron, aye.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. We'll go on to item D, the consent agenda. I hope everybody overlooked it or looked it over, and I'll make a motion to move to approve the consent agenda for May 27th, 2026, the City Council meeting. Is there a second?
It's Jenny, I second.
Got a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Is there any other discussion on items 1 through 4?
No, Ron, if I could. Just,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Kris King's resignation's on there, correct? Just want to thank her for her service. She was on the commissions for a long time and was a big help in the city and moving us forward. So thank you, Kris. If you're out there online or...
That's right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. Jenny?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Aaron, aye.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. The motion passes. We'll go on to item number C, presentations and items for council action. We're going to go to first one is public forum. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come up and make a comment to the council? Seeing nobody. Anybody online that would like to come up and make a comment? Hearing none, we'll close the open public forum and we'll go on to item number 2, which will be Anoka County Sheriff's Department office. And Lieutenant Slavic, how are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, city officials. As you know, I'm Jessica Slavic. I'm a lieutenant with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office in our Criminal Investigations Division, and it is my pleasure to be the liaison between the Anoka County Sheriff's Office and the City of Columbus. I have prepared today our calls for service and our report that I typically cover for the first quarter of the year. I did go into April since we got a little bit of a late start here. But before that, I just want to talk about just some general announcements and some updates coming from the Sheriff's Office. And the big one that we have going on right now that I wanted to make everybody aware of is that the Anoka County Sheriff's Office, along with other law enforcement agencies within Anoka County, as well as in partnership with Emergency Communications and the County Attorney's Office, is working to develop essentially what would be a real-time crime center. So it would be called the Anoka Regional Crime Technology and Information Center. So what the proposal consists of at this point is that it would be a 2-year pilot program. And what that would encompass is expanding all of our automated license plate readers that we have throughout the county. So we have so many right now. What we would essentially be doing is really beefing that up and expanding them. So we have ALPR technology throughout all of the county. It would also consist of implementing a drone-assisted response. So we would have capabilities where not only would our officers and deputies be responding to emergency situations, but even though that can sometimes take, minutes for them to get there, essentially we could have a drone overhead within 90 seconds. So that would really give officer safety and just kind of get us a better glance at what's going on and get some resources and identify the situation and what exactly is happening at that point in time a lot quicker than waiting for officers and deputies to be responding. And then also with that would be added camera technology and real-time public safety tools throughout the county as well. So with that, it's very much in the early stages. We haven't gone into any sort of official contract yet. We have received proposals from both Flock Safety. So Flock is the company that we have our automated license plate readers with now. And then we've also received a quote from Axon, who we have all of our body-worn cameras and squad cameras and stuff is with that company. So right now, it still would need to go through the county board of commissions and be voted on and all of that kind of stuff. But that's what the proposal is looking at. It is gaining a lot of attention. It's gaining a lot of support and discussion, both support from public safety professionals, but then also naturally comes a lot of questions and concerns from the public too. So if you guys have any questions, I can try to answer those. Lieutenant Anthony Mendoza from our patrol division is who's heading this project from our sheriff's office. There's been a few town hall meetings at local cities. I think the city of Columbia Heights just had one recently, and Fridley also had one recently. There's also more information on our website. So if you go to our website, there is a PowerPoint presentation that describes this proposal. It also shares a lot of success stories that we've already have had with some of this technology, advancing our investigations and locating fugitives and things like that. Some of the questions right now are really kind of surrounding privacy concerns regarding drones and having to just sort of educate the public on the needs and when we can. Like, we can't just fly a drone for the purpose of wanting to fly one and follow somebody around, right? We have to either have a search warrant. Minnesota state statutes clearly dictate when we can fly a drone and when we can't, with or without a search warrant. So the idea that we can just deploy a drone and fly over anybody's houses or follow people and do surveillance on people with the use of a drone. So a lot of it's educating on that. And then there's a lot of concerns too regarding the data and where that data is stored, the retention of that data, and how that data is shared. So just really trying to push out a lot of information on that currently to just sort of prepare everybody for what could potentially be coming.
That's a question. This Flock, do you only have it down on Lake Drive, or is it?
I'm not 100% positive where all our Flock cameras are. I know they can move them when they see fit. I want to say on that PowerPoint presentation, it does list where our Flock cameras currently are located in the county.
Okay, on that presentation.
It does, and I will double check, and if it doesn't, I will let you know where the ones are specifically for the city of Columbus.
Well, I know where one is, but I just wondered if you have all the entrances coming into the county, are they all Flocked?
I don't know if they're all the entrances coming into the county, because I remember reading a report recently regarding a theft of a trailer at a business off of Lake Drive, and the deputies were checking the Flock cameras for a potential truck pulling a trailer, and they were able to kind of rule out a point of exit and based off where the cameras were. So I'm not sure if there's one at every entrance into Anoka County, but I can look into that.
Quick question, do you share this information with other counties?
So we do enter MOUs occasionally. Let me see here, I've got some. I'm not certain how we do all of that. I know that a lot of times we have to get a search warrant to gather certain information. The retention, for example, is 30 days. When it goes into sharing, I'm not exactly sure what the oversight is. I know there is oversight on it. I know there are some procedures behind it. And that's the thing that we're wanting to make sure too, is that with this program, we want to ensure everybody that there is direct oversight over it. And we're working with our county attorney's office on the legality of this to ensure that we are obeying by all of those statutes and laws. But I will look into exactly what our process is for sharing.
No, it's just
I know we do. I want to say some agencies we probably have MOUs with and stuff like that to share that information.
Thank you on that.
Mm-hmm.
This is Jenny. As a side note, the Columbus Flock was, it was actually my parents' trailer.
It was.
And it was caught in Columbus at Love's. So they were captured based on Flock. So,
wonderful. And this is the one that was.
Outside of the city, and I thought it was in a different city that it was stolen, but yes.
And this is one that was, they recovered it?
They were
yes.
by random chance in Columbus.
Yes.
So.
Okay, interesting.
Well, actually, their trailer wasn't recovered, but they used the flock system in Columbus to find
it. Yes.
So.
Yeah, so it really does. I mean, it really enhances our investigations and the capabilities that we have. And there's been a lot of success stories from if we have a suspect vehicle and we have an abducted individual or somebody who's been kidnapped and we can locate them and bring them back to Minnesota. I mean, we've got so many success stories with being able to follow the path that the suspects took, get surveillance from local gas stations, and do all kinds of things to advance our investigations and identify, criminal activity. So,
Good.
any other questions with that? I encourage you to look at the PowerPoint presentation, and I'll look into the data sharing and get back to you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, moving into the calls for service, there is one that I do want to report on that falls outside of the first 4 months of the year. Obviously, we're still gathering May stats since it's only the 27th. There's an incident that happened recently that I wanted to share with everybody because it really does exemplify the bravery and the quick actions by not only our deputies, but civilians and other county employees. And this is an incident that happened at Coon Lake Beach on May 19th. The deputies had responded to a suicide in progress call at the beach. Essentially what happened is a 911 call came in. Dispatchers could hear screams, and then they also heard a gunshot. And upon arrival, a deputy located 2 Anoka County Park employees that were actively restraining an adult male. The employees advised the deputy that they had just disarmed the male, but believed that he may still have an additional firearm on him. So the deputy then assisted in restraining the male until additional deputies could respond on scene because this male was struggling with the deputies and the park workers. So the male was eventually taken, restrained and put into handcuffs. However, even during the process of that, he did attempt to access the deputy's duty firearm, and he was actually even able to disengage one level of the retention on his level 3 holster. So once the male, he continued to be uncooperative. He showed signs of intoxication. Once they got him contained, EMS responded, and they did transport him to a local hospital on a medical hold. Once they got that situation under control and they started talking to the park workers indicated that they were conducting a park tour. It was actually one of those employees' first days on the job, so he was a new park worker, and the other employee was showing him around all the county parks. And while they were at the Coon Lake Beach Park, they observed a male who seemed to really be struggling to walk and get out of his vehicle. So they went over there to assist him, and in doing so, the male grabbed a pistol out of his pocket and put it in his mouth. The park employees immediately intervened and began restraining him. During the struggle, a round was discharged, and fortunately that round traveled towards a wooded area, and nobody was injured. But the firearm was loaded, including one also got injected into the chamber, and there were other rounds in the magazine. So luckily nobody was injured, but I just thought this was something that I didn't want to wait until I come for the next quarter presentation, because I just think it really highlights the quick actions and the bravery taken by everybody involved in this situation. And this could have been a very tragic outcome had those park employees, and if they weren't in that right place at that right time to see what would happen, this could have had a very different outcome. Yeah,
good.
Very
Good ending.
yes, very good ending. Okay, now moving on to the calls of service report. Everybody should have received statistics for the first 4 months of the year. As you can see, the calls for service are fluctuating each month between about 150 to 200 calls each month. And compared to this time last year, we've had about 15 more calls for service, so pretty comparable to what we saw this time in 2025. Looking at the different types of calls, you can see that over the last 4 months, there were 9 theft reports, 4 damage to property reports, and 1 burglary. And deputies made 2 felony arrests, 3 gross misdemeanor arrests, 3 misdemeanor arrests, and 12 warrant arrests, as well as conducting numerous traffic stops and making 42 traffic arrests. So just kind of breaking this down a little bit and starting with the thefts. Of these 9 thefts, this ranges from everything from some propane tanks stolen off of a camper that was being stored at KRT Affordable Self-Storage to a woman who refused to pay a $98 cab fee. I'd really like to kind of focus on a couple that have to do with a little bit more of like the theft by swindles and some of the fraud that we're seeing, because it seems like the minute we get ahead of these fraudsters and the things that they're capable of doing, all of a sudden something new happens that we haven't seen before. And one of them that I wanted to talk about was a theft involving some UPS packages. So our victim in this case had ordered 3 brand new cell phones that were being shipped from T-Mobile, and they totaled about $4,000. And she got notification that the delivery had been made. However, she had yet to receive the package. And throughout the investigation, essentially what was learned is that the UPS driver was approached by the male suspect at ARPA Animal Wellness Shelter with the tracking number of this package and proof of that he lived at this location. So he had a picture of some sort with this address, and the UPS driver mistakenly said, yeah, okay, here, you can have the package. And so he was basically gifted these 3 brand new phones. What's that?
Oh, sorry, it's mind blowing.
It is, and it leaves you wondering, how this individual was able to, whether they, were able to hack into the email address. I mean, how one would be able to locate a tracking number and be able to approach a UPS driver like that and just basically be gifted these items. So definitely very clever, something I haven't seen before. I know we had one around Christmas too involving a package where it had also kind of been maybe an inside deal where they ordered all of that home electronic sound equipment, and the boxes appeared to contain it, but when they opened it, it was just dumbbell weights and stuff inside. So, it's like, did this happen at the Amazon distribution center? Did it, and same with this, did this happen, in the T-Mobile purchasing, or did this happen by somebody being able to access our victim's email account and being aware of the purchase that was made and then being able to intercept a UPS driver? It just seems very, very elaborate for a package theft. So I wanted to make everybody aware of that one. There was also a theft by swindle involving Vision Auto Cell in Columbus. Somebody had taken their website and made a fraudulent website and was selling a 1975 Porsche online. Unfortunately, our victim was a resident of the state of Washington, and he had made over $14,000 in payments in trying to purchase this. As the deputies investigated this case, it was revealed that the title information in the vehicle was all fictitious. Vision Auto Sales actually doesn't specialize in vehicles of that sort. It was a fake website, fake online advertisements, and essentially we were unable to locate a suspect and identify them at this time. And then the other one that was a little bit disturbing involves our victim. This one happened on March 5th. Our victim had found an advertisement for HVAC duct cleaning through the website Nextdoor. I don't know if any of you have heard of Nextdoor, but people can post reviews and promote businesses that they've had good experiences with. And our victim had scheduled a duct cleaning with a company off of this website. It was supposed to be for $199. The individual showed up, and when the work was completed, the worker said that it cost a lot more than that and demanded nearly $1,000 for the job. When she attempted to pay him through some sort of an online submission, it wasn't going through, so she ended up paying him cash and then wrote a check for the remaining balance. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like her ducts got cleaned, and when this individual left the property, he also ran over her well and damaged her windmill. And so based off all the advertisements in our investigation, it also seems to be a fraudulent company, and we're unable to locate and identify a suspect in this case. To switch to something where we had a little bit more of a successful investigation. I'm not sure if this is the same trailer theft that we were just talking about, but Highway 35 equipment sales in Columbus. That's wrong. Okay, different one. So on January 16th, the owner, who has some cameras on his property of this business, called and said that a flatbed truck had just rammed in his gate and stole a 20-foot enclosed trailer valued at approximately $10,000. The follow-up investigation and coordination with neighboring agencies, luckily this stolen trailer was later recovered in Maple Plain. It was attached to a different truck. It was now attached to a U-Haul pickup truck, and the stolen trailer now had stolen license plates also attached to it. Luckily, two adult males were occupying the U-Haul truck, so they were both arrested and taken into custody for not only possession of stolen property, but they were in possession of narcotics and arrested for impaired driving while operating with a revoked license. So, thankfully, on that one, 2 suspects were identified and arrested, and the trailer owner got his property back. So, moving on from thefts, we'll go into assaults. There was one assault in the last 4 months, and that occurred on January 31st, and it was a fight at Running Aces Casino, and this involved 2 adult males who became involved in a physical altercation over an argument that they had regarding when they were going to leave the casino after gambling. The surveillance footage shows one male repeatedly shoving the other outside of the business, causing the victim to strike a concrete pillar and fall to the ground multiple times. The victim sustained substantial injuries, including a dislocated shoulder and a head injury. Our victim was transported to a local hospital for treatment, and the suspect was arrested for a felony third-degree assault, and that case is currently with our county attorney's office. And then, as you can see, there was also one burglary in the last 4 months. And this is kind of a burglary, criminal damage to property. This occurred at the Running Aces Hotel. Essentially what had happened is that the security staff, when doing their rounds, discovered that the rooftop access door had been damaged. And then surveillance video ended up showing 3 juvenile males forcing a door open that accessed the rooftop area, and then they pushed and they broke into the rooftop. Through their surveillance footage, they were able to identify the vehicle that was being used by these 3 juvenile males, and then by looking at owner registration, they were able to identify the juvenile male that was the driver. They spoke with him, who identified the other friend that he was with, and they admitted that they went to the rooftop for fun, and so that they were then I wouldn't say arrested, but being charged with 4th-degree burglary and damage to property through the juvenile system, the juvenile court system. And then another notable arrest, we don't really have an area here for terroristic threats, but there was a terroristic threats arrest on April 21st at the 8300 block of 177th Lane Northeast. Deputies responded to a neighbor dispute after a resident reported being threatened with a firearm by another neighbor over an argument of loud music. So essentially what happened is the 911 caller had approached the neighbor, who was a newer neighbor, about blaring music. The suspect became upset with that request, and he emerged from his garage with a hunting rifle and was making statements to the victim about asking him if he wants to test his fate, and letting him know that he can put one between the eyes. He then went back in the garage and came out with what looked to be an AR-15 style rifle, and made some of the same comments. So when deputies got there, they had established a perimeter. They also deployed a drone for their safety. They were able to safely detain all the involved parties. And during the investigation, the suspect admitted to using the rifle as a scare tactic. During the confrontation, a search warrant was obtained and executed on the residence and garage, and the deputies recovered multiple rifles, including pellet guns resembling firearms and a .22 caliber rifle. He was arrested for threats of violence and booked into jail for those charges. And then I just wanted to real quickly highlight some of the traffic stops. You can see the traffic enforcement is high. You can see that some of the arrests appear low. And the tickets that are given out. So I want to really just kind of focus on the fact that the traffic enforcement isn't just about issuing citations, but also serves as crime prevention and a strategy to make these stops, to make that contact and come in with individuals who are wanted, and to reduce the likelihood of them committing crimes in Anoka County and specifically in Columbus. And that contact starts with those routine violations. So some of our warrant arrests that I had highlighted earlier, and the numbers on those are starting by some of those routine traffic stops. And the ones I'm going to talk about now are stopping somebody from a defective brake light or a trailer lighting violation, illegal window tint, speeding, small things like that, the traffic citations might be low, and a lot of times we're giving warnings, especially on speeding, because people like to spend their money on other places besides the highway, right? And we're trying to make contact with these types of individuals to prevent them from committing crimes in the community. So examples in the recent months include a traffic stop at Love's Truck Stop that resulted in the arrest of a male with multiple warrants out of Washington, Hennepin, and Pine County, and this included all felony warrants, including domestic-related offenses. There was also a traffic stop done for defective brake lights, which led to the arrest of a male with an active Chisago County warrant. And then there were multiple stops made on Lake Drive over the last few months, resulting in arrest for felony controlled substance warrants and also cops alerts, so people who were actively being sought after by Hennepin, Ramsey, Scott, and Mille Lacs Lake counties. And they were all apprehended and taken into custody. There we are. That's
it?
what I've had prepared for you, unless anybody has any other questions.
Any questions? No, but crooks are getting smarter, aren't they?
They are. It's really interesting reading some of the scams and the theft by swindles, and it just makes you really have to just double check everything when you're looking for any sort of provider or service worker or making any purchase, and really check the legitimacy of it.
It's almost like you don't want to get on a computer. Somehow they come back to haunt you, or whatever.
Yeah, technology keeps moving faster where everything's Apple Pay, and it's...
Well, thank you very much.
Of course, Mayor.
Lieutenant.
Thank you for having me.
Be safe out there.
Thank you.
We're going to go on to item number 3 now, Fishing for Life, CUP.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Excuse my rearrangement of the windows here so that we can all see where things are at. The city has received an application from Fishing for Life, a Minnesota-based 501c3 nonprofit organization, for a conditional use permit to establish a church and associated program activities at 822 Lake Drive Northeast, Columbus, Minnesota. The subject property consists of approximately 56 acres across 3 parcels and is currently developed with a single-family residence, a trout farming operation, agricultural or pasture land, rural vacant land, and accessory structures. The property is currently associated with the existing trout farm operation. The CUP application was received on March 23rd, 2026. The initial 60-day statutory review deadline was May 22nd, 2026. The city did extend the statutory review period for an additional 60 days up to July 21st, 2026 to allow for sufficient time for a public hearing, technical review, planning commission consideration, and city council action. The applicant proposes to operate the property as a church-based program facility serving youth, veterans, families, and the broader community through structured, Christ-centered, mentor-based outdoor programming. The applicant describes the proposed facility as a home base for church programming activities rather than a public event venue. Proposed activities include worship services, Bible teachings, prayer gatherings, faith-based discussion, youth and family programming, veteran programming, outdoor education, conservation education, leadership development, fishing instruction, outdoor skills training, safety education, leave no trace camping instruction, and limited supervised overnight camping. The applicant states that the program would be pre-scheduled, supervised, and intentionally limited in size. Outdoor programming would primarily occur between May and October, and usually Thursday evenings through Sunday afternoons. Typical youth programs are expected to serve approximately 6 to 15 participants, and occasionally adult or veterans gatherings may occur on weeknights or weekends. The applicant proposes self-imposed maximum occupancy of 30 individuals, including adult supervisors, on site at any one time. The applicant further states that there will be no access public events, no late night activities after 10 p.m., and no commercial expansion beyond the existing trout operation. This property is zoned rural residential, in which your ordinance identifies churches as a conditional use. Agricultural uses, including aquaculture, are permitted pursuant city code. Outdoor programming and retreat activities are interpreted as secondary to the principal church use. The city code broadly defines a church to include organizations incorporated or operating under Minnesota statutes 317A. The legal analysis prepared for the city notes that Fishing for Life is registered as a Minnesota nonprofit corporation under Chapter 317A and therefore qualifies as a church under city code. City code recognizes churches and ancillary facilities operated by a church, including private parks, playgrounds, recreation areas, daycare facilities, preschools, and schools as conditional uses subject to applicable performance standards. The proposed outdoor education, outdoor recreation, and faith-based gatherings and limited supervised camp activities are reasonably interpreted as ancillary to the principal church use and or part of the application's religious exercise. Existing trout farming, aquaculture operation, and agricultural pasture use are permitted uses in the rural residential district and are not dependent on the requested CUP for church use. The city attorney's analysis also notes that city code does not appear to prohibit multiple principal uses on a parcel, provided applicable dimensional and performance standards can be met. Therefore, the church use, existing agricultural uses, aquaculture operation, and residential/caretaker occupancy may coexist on the property, subject to compliant with applicable conditions and permits. The city attorney has reviewed the application in relation to city code, church definition, and federal protections under Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act of 2000. The legal analysis concludes that Fishing for Life likely qualifies as a church under city code and as a religious institution or religious assembly under federal law. The property has access from Lake Drive, County Road 23. The applicant identifies 2 existing accesses from Lake Drive and states that the driveways are adequate for the proposed use and are sanctioned by Anoka County. The applicant estimates that approximately 6 to 10 vehicles per programming day. Given the stated maximum occupancy, pre-scheduled nature of events, and limited programming size, traffic impacts are expected to be intermittent and low in intensity. Staff has contacted the Anoka County Highway Department, provided the presentation, and the Anoka County Highway Department has no comment on or restrictions on the proposed use. Emergency vehicle access is expected to be accommodated through existing driveway and open site areas. Any access modifications would be required by Anoka County or emergency services shall be completed by the applicant prior to implementation of the affected activity or improvement. Staff have reached out to the fire chief and he has no issues with traffic and or parking. The applicant states that parking can be accommodated on existing gravel areas and around the outbuildings in front of the house and behind this gate south of the driveway. No additional parking areas are proposed at this time. Staff recommends a condition requiring that all parking occur on site and prohibited parking within the public right-of-way or in a manner that obstructs emergency access should be prohibited. If the intensity of the use increases or the city determines that parking is insufficient, the applicant would be required to submit a revised parking and circulation plan for city review. The property is served by a private well and on-site septic system. The applicant states that the septic system will serve only the residents and that portable sanitation facilities would be provided and serviced for outdoor programming activities. A SSTS or septic compliance inspection would be required at the time of sale or transfer of ownership or as otherwise applicable by city ordinance or code. Any future structures, bunkhouse, plumbing, expanded occupancy, or modification to wastewater flows would require appropriate city, county, and state review and permitting before construction or use. Existing solar arrays are proposed to remain as constructed and continue to supply power for the trout ponds. The property contains wetlands and is bordered by natural features that provide buffering from surrounding uses. The applicant states that no wetland impacts are proposed and that a preliminary inquiry with the Rice Creek Watershed District indicates no watershed approval or permits are required. Staff recommends that any future land disturbance, grading, filling, drainage modifications, structures, driveway expansion, parking expansion, trail construction, boardwalks, utility work, or wetland impacts be subject to review by the city, as well as other regulatory authorities such as Rice Creek Watershed, Anoka County, Minnesota DNR, or any other jurisdiction. The proposed use is represented as low intensity, supervised, and compatible with the rural character of the property. The applicant has stated that all activities will be adult supervised, participant numbers will be limited, no open access public events are proposed, and no permanent amplified sound systems or high intensity lighting is planned. Staff recommends conditions of the CUP limiting hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Thursday through Sundays, requiring compliance with applicable noise regulations, prohibiting outdoor amplification of sound unless separately approved by City Council, and the required activities to remain consistent with the application materials and approved conditions. The applicant narrative does reference the potential for constructing a bunkhouse in the future. The current CUP should not be interpreted as approval of a bunkhouse, expanded lodge facility, campground, dormitory, or additional structures. Any future structure or overnight facility would require separate city review, building permits, zoning review, sanitation review, fire code review, and other applicable approvals. Depending on the scale and operational effect, the CUP may need to be amended. The applicant has offered an annual goodwill payment or contribution in lieu of local property tax in recognition of the property's nonprofit use. This offer is completely voluntary and is not a condition of the conditional use permit approval. The city should not base its approval or denial of a CUP on the existence, amount, timing, or continuation of any voluntary contribution. This proposed use is consistent with the rural character of the area because it preserves agriculture and aquacultural uses, maintains open space, limits participant numbers, relies primarily on existing structures and site areas, and avoids high-intensity light, amplification, sound, and substantial new impervious surfaces. The site size, existing rural settings surrounding natural resources, and buffering from wetlands and parklands support compatibility with adjacent and nearby properties. The proposed use also provides a community-oriented benefit through youth development, veteran support, outdoor recreation, conservation, and responsible land stewardship while maintaining a rural, residential, and agricultural character of the property. I have identified 3 pages of findings of fact based on the application and the land. I have identified 25 proposed conditions of the conditional use permit for you to consider. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the proposed conditional use permit at its May 20th, 2026 meeting. Following a public hearing and consideration of testimony, staff analysis, and applicable review criteria, the Planning Commission recommended approval of a conditional use permit subject to the recommended findings of fact and conditions of approval. City staff recommends that City Council consider approving the findings of fact and conditional use permit recommendations of the Planning Commission for a church and associated use for Fishing for Life at 8220 Lake Drive Northeast, subject to the recommended conditions of approval. The proposed use qualifies as a conditional church use in the rural residential district, preserves the rural character and agricultural character of the property, maintains existing permitted agriculture and aquaculture uses, and limits potential operational impacts through enforceable conditions. Approval with conditions also represents the least restrictive means of addressing land use impacts while minimizing potential legal risk under the Religious Land Use and Institutional Persons Act or federal law.
Thank you, Aaron. That's a lot. We have, can you identify yourself for the record?
I'm Tom Goodrich. I am the founder and executive director of Fishing for Life, and with me is Laura, our operational director for all our programming.
Okay. I know most of us here were at the Planning Commission or had some contact with it, and I know you kind of briefed everybody on that during that time, and there was a few questions, and there's a lot of, how do I want to say, open areas with, like the bunkhouse and things like that. I don't know if anybody on our panel here at the council will have anything to say, but after listening to all this, and thank you. Do you want to just explain again how this operation is? The Thursday through Sunday all you need?
No, in most of our camps, we envision, so we currently have been doing operations like camps for 20 years. Most of them are up north or out west, and we subcontract from a local camp like Camp Chaminade or one of the bigger camps and maybe take 2 cabins. What we've identified is that the kids will not necessarily leave the metro as much. The anxiety, the screen time, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances. Our hope was to find a local base to conduct camps on, and we really feel like the primary use would be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Those are free times. We could expand it, so the camps primarily would be a Friday, Saturday night, overnight, in which they'd go home Sunday, close to the metro, so they can travel to and fro with maybe their leadership, etc. And we're very relational based. We don't want big camps. It's maybe a boat guide with 2 kids on average. So that's how we limit our numbers. But by locating in closer to the metro, we can, and doing more camps on weekends. Our typical camps are Monday through Friday up north during the summer primarily. But we feel like we can really impact kids by a Friday, Saturday night overnight primarily. It's not to say we wouldn't use the land on a Wednesday night for a veteran, maybe small gathering, fishing, and or something, but primarily I'd say Friday, Saturday nights is what we envision the biggest impact and the reason to be here.
And if I could, just to kind of, I think, off of last week's meeting, explain a little bit more about what a typical camp that we would suggest happen on the property would look like. So there would be a half an hour drop-off window, so you're maybe having at most 12 parents or guardians dropping off within that half-hour window. They don't stay, they just drop off. And then that evening would be a dinner, probably some fishing techniques and tips and kind of a clinic going on, some campfire where we're doing a little bit of devotional. Anything that we would do after the 10 p.m. would be inside, whether that's inside one of the small buildings where they're practicing casting, or if that's in the bunkhouse someday, if that gets approved. So the noise would be done by 10, everybody's inside. The next morning they wake up, they have breakfast together, and then they would get in our van and drive to a local lake where our guides meet them there. So at most, we're probably going to have 2 staff and 2 volunteers overnight. So we're talking less than 10 cars parked overnight or during the camp duration. We have had a chance to measure out there, and it does, we feel, hold between 30 to 35 cars on that gravel area. So a very minimal amount of that would actually be taken up. So anyway, going back to the day, they have breakfast, they make a bag lunch, we go to the launch, we meet our guides there, they spend the day fishing, they come back towards the evening time where again we repeat the same process, or they're picked up at that time. So they're very small camps. It's going to be Friday evening to a Sunday morning. Sunday mornings we might have a small prayer service with the kiddos before we send them back, just because that is the average church time, and we do definitely as a Christian organization feel that is important to give that to the youth. So that's kind of a little bit of what that looks like. With that, I would say that the volunteers that are there may have their boat and trailer attached. So we may have within those 4 to 6 cars, 2 boats and trailers attached within that. So obviously that takes up a little bit more room in the parking area. Our goal is to do our mission, which is to bring Christ to people through fishing and outdoor activities. So I know currently they do have chickens, they've had cows on the property. Our goal might be to have, a couple chickens for kids to kind of get used to, and they may never have that opportunity, but our goal is definitely not to have animals that we're using as a secondary business beyond the trout. We will have limited availability to the public, as Aaron mentioned. Thank you so much for that detail. That everything that we do on the property will have registrations, and we do that for safety. We do that for insurance reasons. So any public time would be to further the troutmonger business that is currently happening. But we are very aware that we don't want public necessarily walking on the property at any time, because that does affect our safety of the youth that would be on the property. We are very big into backgrounding, training, and all of those good things that keep our youth safe. So there will be posted hours. It will be during those hours that public are welcome on our property. Of course, we'd love to host big days for the community that are, take a kid fishing day and they can come on and fish for free, and kind of share our joy with fishing with the community here in Columbus. But obviously all of those things would be permitted by the city. So.
Well, back to the taking the kids out fishing or so the way you're talking right now, the bunkhouse is further in the future. It's not in the CUP here, right?
Right, yeah, we would not move forward with anything unless it was permitted by the city. So we do expect to come before you at some point in the future asking for that. We are in the middle of a capital campaign. Tom's doing a great job raising funds so that we can make the stream happen. But that we understand that this CUP does not include a bunkhouse, and that any structural changes on the property, we do need to come before and make sure that we have all the city and county permits that are necessary for anything.
So all these kids will be camping out, so they won't be sleeping in any other than a tent.
At this point, that is correct. We have, sort of vision cast a bit. What could we do? A bunkhouse would be our first choice, and then of course we could reconfigure. There's a couple buildings, of course, with we would permit that. But currently we would do some camping, and using tents would probably be our first choice until we could raise the funds for a bunkhouse.
And what are you going to use for hygiene for the kids? I mean, you're going to have outhouses there, or? Yeah,
so we've been looking into like the kind of like more the higher end porta potties. They have like the big trailers and all of that, putting something like that out there so that we would definitely have enough ability to deal with the hygiene issues and the restrooms and all of that.
And then you'd feed them also, have meals and all that.
Yep, so there is currently a, what's the word I'm looking for?
Commercial kitchen?
Commercial kitchen on there. So we feel that we can work with that to be able to do what we need currently. Obviously, down the road, if we build a bunkhouse, it would also probably have a commercial kitchen in it, so.
So I've done some winter camping, but you don't plan to do that?
We could stage a crappie camp and use the White Bear Lake for crappie fishing. So a Friday, Saturday, Sunday is very, very possible in the winter. Can still have our campfire if we had the bunkhouse, of course. Without that, no, we couldn't do it.
Okay, so you're probably looking, at your busy part is going to be in the summer and into the fall.
Correct, yep. Probably May through October.
I'm sorry to ask you a lot of questions. A lot of questions weren't asked at Planning Commission that I had.
Yeah, no, that's great.
But anybody else here on the panel have?
Yeah, this is Jenny. I do have questions. I know in the Planning Commission, one of the things you touched on was not necessarily wanting to limit yourselves to that, thank you, Erin, to the 30 people, because you felt that, I guess maybe you could explain it a bit better, because I know at one point you talked about potentially having people stop by and do some fishing on site if they wanted to, which just kind of opened up more questions because I'm not very familiar with the current business that's there. And so I just wanted to touch on that because I know that the city noted that kind of 30-minute or 30-person maximum at one time. So could you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think for us, it was a clarification to make sure that we were understanding Mr. Berg's recommendations correctly. So the 30 people does not include the trout pond stuff as far as people walking on to purchase fish or to fish. What I think we are trying to clarify is that those hours are going to be very defined and are not going to just be like, hey, it's Saturday, we're all going to the trout farm. It's going to be very dependent because we do not want to put the youth that are there into a situation where somebody could potentially harm them, right? So it would be a little bit more defined than probably what it is right now. And the other thing we wanted to clarify is that those 30 would not necessarily include the people who are living there, because if you have a caretaker living there with his family, that could be 5 people right there. So, we were just, I think our questions were just trying to make sure that we were understanding the recommendations as written in the same way that we had intended.
So to clarify then to city staff, the trout pond, I know that that's an agricultural business, and so it's not treated kind of within this specific bucket that we're working on. And so I wanted to clarify that as well, because I think it could almost get a bit murky between, and again, I don't know the current business and how often people are there fishing, but I think those are maybe more questions I have, just because I know that you have neighbors nearby, and because it is in this somewhat residential zone, I want to be really respectful of the neighbors that are there. And so I might have more questions about what that looks like and maybe want that laid out in a bit more detail. I don't know how the other council members feel about that, but just because I don't have a lot of information about the trout pond itself, and just wanting to not all of a sudden have 50 people there and say that 20 are 20 are fishing, and all of a sudden we just have this growing situation.
I think, if I might, the troutmonger business is comprised of on-site fishing, moving trout to different locations, people who purchase, bringing them to restaurants and bringing them to the farmer's market and smoking them. So we may not want to do any of that. Would we allow walk-in traffic? As Laura said, it would be more defined, register online so we know you're coming, otherwise no walk-on traffic. That way we can control the numbers. And let's just say it was Monday through Thursday only, and if we have a weekend, it's just you cannot register. That's what we envision doing to control those numbers. I think they have the luxury right now of saying come whenever you want. We wouldn't want that. We're not as dependent for the revenue stream as maybe the current businesses, because we're a nonprofit. Really, our goal is for kids to enjoy that land and experience the great outdoors. So I don't want to, if that makes a little more sense.
No, it does clarify some of it. I just, like I said, I think it can get a little bit murky just with what it is in having not only the agricultural business, but also this experience-based business, which I very much appreciate and I'm excited about, the opportunities you potentially do have. I just want to make sure that all of this is laid out, because you can always work to adjust conditions later in favor of you, but we can't necessarily take anything away. And so I think I just want to make sure that things are laid out in a way that is respectful of everybody and everybody's of the same understanding. One other question I have relates to, because this is in the rural residential area, Is there no condition related to paving and having a parking lot? What does that look like in terms of this? Because this is kind of this murky situation of not being in the commercial zone. So can staff speak to that a little bit? Because we have potential handicap spaces and things that aren't being addressed. And I know if we look at the map, it also maybe talk about, because I did drive by very slowly. It was the holiday, so I didn't stop, but tried to kind of figure out where that parking would be. So if we can maybe talk about what that looks like, just because I really do want to understand what, I mean, again, if it's 2 or 3 cars, I do understand that, but just wanting to talk about that because generally we do have paved parking lots.
Sure. I think Jesse may be better suited to explain the normal parking patterns he uses.
Thank you.
Can you expand that picture at all?
Let me jump to another map that will be a little bit easier. That's just a picture.
So, Jennifer, to answer your questions, there's parking for about 40 cars as it is now. It's gravel, driveways, and parking areas. And if you can find a right picture. So for their needs, there would never be an issue of parking because as I understand it, they would drop off their kids Thursday or Friday morning and there's nobody there except the counselors who are staying overnight. So I don't think that would be a big issue.
So I know you have the, obviously the solar panels there for the trout ponds.
Yep.
So the gravel area is going to be basically just that whole area kind of in the front of the house, right?
So you see the driveway coming in.
And yep.
And you can park about 15 cars to the left between the house and the buildings. And then if you go down this gravel road to the south, you can park another 15 cars there. And if you take a left by the pole barn, there's room for another 10 cars there, or any of that area also. So the parking isn't an issue, and it's all gravelled, and it's sandy soil, so it's not a mud issue. And again, if they're just dropping off their kids and then picking them up the next day, you're not going to have a crowd of people fighting for a parking spot, I think.
And can city staff speak to, is there, so they wouldn't need to have a paved parking lot, is what I'm understanding, being in the residential zone? Or how did we go about that?
Yeah, so I guess my understanding is we wouldn't require that for a home occupation, for one. Number two, there's nothing in the ordinance that talks about making non-conforming businesses conform. So if this is a non-conforming business that was identified by the city attorney, I don't know that we can then start enforcing current ordinance. There might be some way to condition that in another way that has to do with dust, environmental conditions to be considered. But outright, I don't know that we can enforce or require them to pave anything other than what our ordinance currently states, which is the apron of the driveway.
Thank you for clarifying, and
Yeah.
thank you for the information. Like I said, I obviously saw, I looked at the aerial map and saw you had the gravel. I just wasn't sure if it would be on that or if you would park people off in the field on the side or exactly what that looked like. And obviously you talked about having, a few cars here and there and not necessarily 20, 30 cars and whatnot. But I just wanted to make sure we clarified that so everybody wasn't, of the same understanding. So I do have some other questions, but if other council members want to go ahead.
Well, go ahead. Keep going.
rolling. You want to keep going? I got a few after.
One of my other questions goes into some of the neighbors, so we can talk about that at the end, but that's okay.
Sure.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Tom, curious, who's going to be the caregiver? Is that going to be you two? Will you be there living at the residence, or Is that their residence when camps aren't going on?
Sure. I think what we envision is a caretaker, kind of, for lack of a better word, a lifestyle person who has a heart for ministry, probably wouldn't run the camps because it's a lot just to manage the place, get it ready for Friday arrival, and that's their job. Maybe maintain the revenue stream of the troutmonger as well, raise their family there. So we haven't hired that person. We might have them in-house, but we don't know. But we love that it has a residence, because our other options were buying greenfield, putting up a building, have to put a fence around 5 acres, and we have to unlock the chain link fence. So to have the house is a real, I think, advantage, and to get the right person in there. So it would be a hire, I think. Laura, any thoughts beyond that?
Yeah, it would be a person that we hired, as Tom said, and with the trout, obviously, we need somebody there 24/7. So that's kind of the idea, is that would be kind of our lead trout person, but also just a facility caretaker, so.
Okay, so that kind of leads into my next question was, as far as the trout operation that's currently, that had come under your 501c3 and operated by yourselves, or is that still operated by another entity on site?
So we've wrestled a little with this in the past, because Fishing for Life actually operates 4 mobile trout ponds, and that is a great branding thing that we've done, and it's a way to reach kids. So we'll be at the Northwest Sports Shoreway Game Fair, and we've been buying trout from Jesse forever. And then when we found out it was for sale, that's how we engaged in the relationship. That is considered money outside of ministry, and it is a tax accountant deals with that a little separately. So we would have to, although we enjoy the revenue stream, it unfortunately is taxable and looked at outside of ministry.
Yeah, and I was just trying to find out, is there multiple businesses there? You know, are you going to be selling eggs too, things like that? I don't know. Right?
Yeah, I don't think so. Our board is
quite
protective about what's your main thing here, and even the troutmonger as it currently stands, we really would maybe just think about the low-hanging fruit as within our model. Jesse runs a really great smoked trout business at Farmers Market. I don't think we're doing it. That's because it just doesn't come easy, and I don't want to be pulled off our game of impacting kids.
Sure. I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add that I think for us, obviously, like Tom said, we have the trout ponds. And so being able to supply our own trout is a huge cost savings. And then we can actually give those cost savings on as well. But beyond that, like our vision for these trout ponds are more to have a place where veterans can come and fish, where kids can come and fish. It's not going to necessarily be casting. If you've ever had a chance to fish at the ponds, it's pretty easy, but I think it is a good starter. And we in Minnesota have a few months where it's kind of like dicey if you can be on the water or what the regulations are. And so for us, this is a like kind of that in-between stage where we know, okay, we only get, say we just were with some of the high schools this last week. We only get these kids for, 3 hours. Well, what's our best bet? Maybe it is fishing at the dam in Coon Rapids like we just did, and giving them the ability to learn water near them. But maybe it's bringing them here where we know they're each going to be successful and catch their first fish and have that ability to feel confident when they do go to a different piece of water. So for us, it isn't so much that we're looking at it as like, oh yeah, we're going to have this great business stream. It's more about how can we use those trout ponds within our mission to really maximize what we're doing.
Cool. Thank you.
Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen. Just a couple questions. One is, you're going to be purchasing this property. Is this the only property you have for your camps? You mentioned about leasing other camp properties. Is this the only one that you actually own or want to own?
I think if I heard you, is this the only property we have?
or will have, yes?
Yes. We currently lease from a place in Elk River that we house our stuff and have our little office. And but we've been this has been our vision for a while as we've laid it out. Can we have our own piece? And then we found the need, if we can locate closer to the metro, we can impact more kids. So this is the only one we would want, this vision is the only piece of property we have.
Okay.
But it would not replace our outstate camps. So we still have like a week-long bass fishing that's up north. We've got some catfishing down on the rivers. Like those will still, our specialty camps will stay, and we have those relations with those vendors that we work with for that. So this is not replacing any of that. This is just to amplify what we can do here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, sort of a stepping stone. There's kids that have never been up north, and it's a big risk. But if they come to Columbus and able to experience a 1-night, 2-night camp, they may end up going up north, and we're trying to identify those kids that have a high propensity to want to be outdoors.
Thank you. One of the other questions I have is, it looks like there is 4 legal descriptions to this property. Is that correct, Jesse? 4 legal descriptions?
3.
I didn't hear you.
4 legal descriptions to the sale?
3.
Okay, 3 legal descriptions. So I'm going to ask city staff to just discuss with me the elephant in the room regarding the voluntary donation as far as taxes. How does that work as a church place, or as, us giving up that income as far as city goes?
Yeah, I will defer to the city attorney
as
a starting point, and then I can expand on my experience with other cities and nonprofits, but I'll let Megan start.
So I think it's helpful to break this project and the application in front of you into a couple of different buckets. And I'm going to break your question into a couple of different buckets as well. So first and foremost, we live in the state of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota has determined that nonprofit organizations that are properly licensed by the state are not required to pay property taxes on the portions of the property that is utilized for its charitable purpose. The portions of property that are utilized for commercial purposes are taxable. The same thing is true for cities, and I think that's a good example to look at. So when a city operates, for example, an ice rink, they have hockey programs there, they're running parks programs, they're leasing ice, all for hockey purposes. That falls within their Parks and Rec purpose. But when they start leasing one room within that hockey rink or within the hockey complex to a private vendor that does weight training, for example, that weight training component of the hockey rink becomes a taxable purpose, okay? Same thing is true in this situation. Where there are nonprofit uses, there are nonprofit protections. Where there are for-profit uses, there are taxes collected. And so that's a property tax valuation question. The question of the donation, so within Minnesota law and more broadly within land use law throughout the United States, a city cannot condition a approval on payment of a fee that's not tied to a particular purpose, right? So oftentimes when you review a conditional use permit, you require the payment of a sewer and water accessibility charges because those are tied to the development of the property. There has to be what the Supreme Court has said is a rational nexus between the proposed use and the city's interest. And so the city's interest certainly can be in the context of collecting property taxes, but not in this vein, right? And so we cannot utilize a conditional use permit to extract what property taxes would have been paid against the property. Now, that being said, cities are nonprofit organizations. Cities can accept donations from providers within its community. They can accept donations in the form of services as well as in the form of cash donations. What you will not see as part of this approval, it's a lovely offer that has been made by the applicants here, but you will not see it as a condition of approval because it would not be appropriate under Minnesota law. Did I answer the question, and can I provide, please feel free to ask clarifying questions.
Well, all right, Megan, I'll ask you this question. With the 3 property IDs that are on the docket here, one of them is going to be a taxable situation. Does that exclude us from getting property taxes on a taxable business in that sense, or?
No, so long as, and this is an assessment that the property appraiser's office with the county is going to do on behalf of the city. So they're going to make an assessment about what percentage of the property is utilized for a for-profit purpose, the trout, the event potential business. And then they're going to make a determination about what percentage of the property is utilized for that nonprofit purpose.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. And sort of along those same lines, I think as you're having conversations with regards to conditions, I think it's helpful to break the approvals into sort of 3 categories. Number 1 is the existing longstanding residential use, that's a permitted use within the rural residential district. Number 2 is the commercial and agricultural use, which is the farming use, right? And how does that play in? What are the historical rights that are attributable to the property with regards to that commercial agricultural use? And then lastly, there's the conditional use permit for the religious use. And so those come in 3 different buckets. They're all treated in 3 different ways. And we can, as you're talking about that, I hear some concerns about parking, site circulation, things along those lines. We can effectively, I think, address those questions with conditions of approval associated with, in particular, the conditional use permit for the church use.
And I just have one other question. It's probably more for the city staff. Have we looked at a term at all for this conditional use permit as far as time frame goes?
Did you say a term?
Yeah.
Conditional use permits run with the land unless there's a violation that gets it revoked. So once you approve a conditional use permit for this property, that remains in effect until the use discontinues for more than a year, or it is revoked.
So some of our CUPs don't have 3-year terms or 5-year terms?
That would be an interim use permit.
Okay.
They're 2 different categories.
Okay.
Correct. And religious uses, churches, as defined by the code, are conditional uses within the rural residential district. Now, I think it's important to talk about the revocation component here. So there are, I think, 2 to 3 pages of conditions within your packet here. This permit can be revoked for a violation of any of those conditions, okay? And so what the process would look like there is in the event that there are, regularly in excess of 30 people on the property and that there are parking problems. That's inconsistent with the conditions of approval for the church use. At that point in time, we would send a notice to the property owners and we would say, this has been observed on a regular basis. This is inconsistent with the conditional use permit that was granted by the city of Columbus. You have an opportunity to tell us about why you are in compliance with your conditional use permit. You would hold a public hearing. If in fact your code enforcement team determined that there had been an ongoing violation of the conditional use permit conditions, you would have an opportunity to provide that information to say why that was true or not true, and then council would make a determination about whether or not the CUP could be appropriately revoked.
Well, thank you for coming. I look forward to you being in the city of Columbus, and thank you, Megan, for your explanation.
Jenny, you have any questions? More?
This is Jenny. So thank you for touching on that, because I know I've gotten a text message and a phone call relating to potential lessening of taxes relating to this being a nonprofit. And so that does, I think, clarify some of the information. I know that I've had feedback that some neighbors want to see potentially have development there with some different homes because it would increase our tax base. Also talking fiscal disparities and some of those things. I did reach out to one of the neighbors who lives nearby, and they were potentially interested in seeing it stay rural and, keeping that kind of farming mentality there. So kind of having feedback both ways. That being said, I did reach back out to that neighbor, knowing that tonight was happening, and then I reached out to another neighbor who was facing next door, and because of, I think, some mapping issues and things like that, neither of them got the notice and got the information directly beyond the information that I presented to them. And so I think for the sake of what that is, I would really like to see the neighbors who at least have adjoining properties receive the information before, not because I'm against this or anything like that, but I just think it's really important to have really have the neighbors that are going to be around you aware of what this is and really be able to at least have a voice in what that looks like. I haven't had negative feedback from the neighbors I did talk to, but I think that that's maybe an important factor and one we can talk about potentially at our workshop as well in what that looks like with, because I think currently we have this kind of 300-foot rule, or if that's correct. 350-foot rule. And so for some reason with how that mapping application worked, it didn't reach out to either of the neighbors on either side. And so we potentially need to talk about that at some point. But I would, both of them did request at least some of the information in the packet because they just want to know at least what's going on and what potentially would be there. So that would be my only request.
Well, let's deal with that in a minute. I got a question real quick for Megan. If they were to drop, say they didn't want to do the trout monger down at selling fish or whatever, but just wanted to raise it or whatever it was, does that affect the CUP?
It does not.
Does not. It stays the same.
The fishing operation is certainly a core component of what has been shared with the city as a component of the religious use here. But aquaculture, is specifically permitted underneath your ordinance within the rural residential district.
Okay. But I mean, if they're not selling it, they're just having kids there fishing, it's still the same CUP. Okay, thank you. Any other questions up here?
Yeah, I just had a couple more here that popped into my head as we were going through this. Ian, we're both on the fire board, Ron. Do you have like an emergency plan as far as fire truck or emergency vehicles to be able to get in and turn around? Kind of a two-part thing, and then also a safety plan around, what if there was a tornado or weather? I attended a lot of Boy Scout camps. There was always a plan in place, we go to this building or whatnot, we go to this basement to get out of the weather. Is there anything put forth for that?
Yeah, as I kind of mentioned, all of our guides are trained. We go through a lot of, swimming safety, we go through weather safety, we go through all of these things. So if we are on the property, we will have those plans in place. We have talked with Jesse about emergency vehicles. From what we've been told, there is plenty of room and I think you can see it on the map too.
Yeah.
And so obviously, any parking that's done, we're going to be considerate of if there needs to be an emergency vehicle in.
It's a rare occurrence, right? But it gets brought up. There's a clear driveway there, but if there was where they needed to get, multiple vehicles in.
And there's the two entrances, and so they're both usable. One is just gated currently.
Sure.
So we would make sure that all of that access is always available. Our top priority is always safety, so.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, if you had that gate open or during camp time or something, so they could just loop in between the house and the building or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Rob, may I follow up on your question?
Yeah, for
too?
sure.
So, because that was also a question of mine was, an emergency evacuation plan for severe weather. If you're going to have children out in tents out there, is that something we should add to the CUP?
So there is currently a bomb shelter on the property that is usable underground. So that would obviously be part of our emergency response, but there's also the house. And as that person would be our staff member, we would have access in a case of emergency like that.
Right. But my follow-up question is for staff and for the city council too. Do we want that document in as part of the CUP?
I think so.
Make that a condition that you have an emergency evacuation plan. Okay.
Would that include like extreme weather, right?
Yeah, that's I'm thinking if something happens where the kids are out in the tents there.
And I brought it up because I'd been a Boy Scout camped at Tomahawk and we had an emergency, plan for there. We were camping down at the street fairgrounds and a tornado came through. We had to evacuate, but there was a plan put in place and everybody that was at the camp kind of knew. Girl Scouts, my mom was a Girl Scout leader, same deal type.
Yeah.
And I think my intent for that is, if you're not there on that property, that CUP still exists. So any potential future owners would again have to submit an emergency action plan. So.
Yeah,
for the
absolutely.
future.
Jesse? Jesse, can I ask where your bomb shelter is? Where is the bomb shelter? I mean, you just give me just a ballpark location. I'm just curious.
Can you enlarge that?
Over to the other,
Go left.
yep.
That's the entrance.
Okay, all right,
And I think it holds probably between 40 and 50 people.
nice.
And a lot of spiders. And a lot of spiders, I said. Yeah.
So to Councilmember Wendell, adding condition 26, Fishing for Life must have a documented emergency action plan, including severe weather.
Correct.
Does that work?
So who would review it? Would it be the fire chief or emergency manager?
Would you like to review it? We can make that part of the condition.
Well, that'd
Review
probably be reviewed by the fire chief of our local community, which would be Forest Lake Fire.
I can't imagine if you have a bomb shelter for 40 people, that's going to be an issue, but you know what I mean? That's nice that that's on the property.
Are there any other questions here?
Just one other question, Mayor, if I could, out of curiosity. You said earlier you were looking in the metro area for a place. Have you looked at other places other than Columbus?
Yeah, we have a matrix that is identified, what we need, what we want, and so we have looked, and we are looking, but this is really a special piece. It aligns, I think, with the Columbus rural. We love that. So we're doing our due diligence to look. I think from here, with an approval, we'd love to get into a letter of intent, if possible, to hold it, and then I'm out raising funds, and so, to answer your question, we have looked and will continue until, this is our first choice for sure.
Thank you.
Ms. Cheney, one last question. If you were to hold events that exceeded that 30-person mark, can the city describe what that process would look like in terms of events and things
Thank
that
you.
way?
Yeah, the city currently has a special event permit. So anything that would exceed the already limitations of commercial parcel and or residential parcel, a simple, and I believe it's a $10 permit, gets reviewed by the zoning administrator based on all of the facts submitted. We would submit, we would grant a special event permit for that particular use if we find that it matches or can be met by the applicant.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other comments? So we'll go back to Jenny's. So you want to propose a what now?
I would ask if we could potentially table this for 2 weeks only so that the neighbors could be notified. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about that, but both of the neighbors asked for the information. And because of the holiday, we received our packet Friday and then we had the holiday on Monday. And so we really only had one working day up until today to work on this. And so I think where it may have been a little bit earlier with the holiday, it kind of threw that off a little bit. So I'd potentially ask to table for 2 weeks so that the city could send those neighbors the information.
Will we fall within that 60 days or what?
Yeah, so we did extend it to early July. So you do have at least 2 weeks before a decision has to be made.
Is that going to be a problem with?
Not for us. If I understand, we have just 1 week for the city to approve? Is that what I'm hearing? Or you said at least a week?
No, the extension of the, wouldn't it just push it out to our next
July
council meeting?
21st.
Yeah.
The 120 days based on statute was pushed out to July 21st. So the city technically has until July 21st to make a final decision. I think Councilmember Latin is just suggesting a 2-week table so that we can expand the notification to the neighborhood farther than the additional 350 feet that we did initially, so that they can receive that information. But that would need to be in the form of a motion, and she would have to get a second, and it would have to get approved that way, so.
Correct. So okay, so this is Jenny, and I move to request that the council table this until the June 10th, 2026 city council meeting, so city staff would have that time to send the packet information to the neighboring residents.
Okay,
It's Rob, I can second it.
all right, so we got a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Any other discussion? Or anybody? Other questions? Okay, we'll take a vote, and Jenny?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Karen, aye.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. We'll take it up in 2 weeks, and
Thank you.
thank you very much for
for
coming and
information.
explaining,
Thank you.
Tom and Laura.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Okay, we'll go on to item number 4, City Hall project update, information item only. Jack?
This is an information item only because I want to go over just where the funds would come from. Should we do a new city hall project, a renovation, or more than just basic things to address current needs? The Columbus City Council examining alternatives to address a variety of issues with the City Hall building. These discussions are focused on new build, total renovation, or attending to only the most pressing needs of the City Hall. Wold Architects has assisted the city with the needs assessment analysis, options and cost estimates for a new City Hall build or renovation of the structure. Preliminary cost estimates range from $6.8 to $7.2 million for a new build and $4.8 to $5.6 million for a complete renovation. A proposal to finance this project that would be budget neutral is being considered that would involve the transfer of up to $601,000 of current bond payments that will be amortized over the next 2 years, designating the proceeds from sales of 3 city properties as exhibited in attachment 2 of your packet, and utilizing the maturing certificate of deposit or Fund 407 to cover the cost of the City Hall project. Should renovation or new construction be the selected option for the City Hall project, the following city bonds will be paid off, and those payments will be redirected to the City Hall project. Those bonds are Bond 2118A, which is Public Utilities, Freeway District Water and Sewer Bond. The callable principal is $950,000, and that bond is callable in August of this year. The other bond will be the 2028 Freeway District 85-acre land purchase bond. The callable principal is $2,535,000, and it's callable in February of 2028. The third bond will be the 2021A Hornsby Street construction project. The callable principal of that bond is $755,000, and it will be callable in 2029. The payoff of these bonds would be the final payment of the city's land purchase and utility system debt in the Freeway District. The sale of city property of the 7.7-acre Hornsby Street site and the 2.2-acre Lake Drive site properties would net the city $1,325,000. The sale of this property is scheduled to close by July 8th of 2026. Of this amount, 20% or $265,000 is due to repay a city interfund loan to the EDA. This will leave an outstanding balance in the interfund loan account of $206 and $1,060,000 for buying down the proposed City Hall project cost to lessen the amount that would be subject to a bond issuance. The sale of the 5.3-acre East Hornsby Street site, North Hornsby Street site on the east side is under a purchase agreement must be executed by November 12, 2026. The city would receive $800,000 from the sale of this property. The sale would be bound by the 20% interfund loan repayment of $160,000, netting $640,000 for buying down the proposed City Hall bond project principal amount. This would leave an outstanding balance in the interfund loan debt of $46,000. The final payoff of the interfund loan will be made when the 5.7 acre site located at the end of the paved portion of West Freeway Drive is sold. The total net amount derived from the three sales will be $1,700,000, reducing the amount of the bond principal for the project. This amount, in addition to a single allocation or mix of City CD, TX 75, City Fund 407, or Bond Fund 360, will enable the city to reduce the proposed bond indebtedness to $5 million. So in summary, a new city hall with a cost of $7.2 million involves the following mix of funding sources: utilization of proceeds from the sale of 3 city properties, utilization of city bond fund accounts 308, 360, and 377, pay off those existing bonds previously named, utilization of a city bond fund reserve account if necessary, and a city CD in the amount of $709,000, which will mature on August 20th, 2026, and is available and appropriate to cover any gaps in shortage of revenues described above. A mix of these assets are proposed for use to fund whatever City Hall project option is selected. Their use would be budget neutral. Let me explain what budget neutral means. Budget neutral means the City Hall project would have no impact on the 2027 city budget or following budget. The city budget may go up, but it wouldn't be due to this project, because the current city budget now is subject to Sheriff's Department's contract's going to go up $20,000. Fire will go up probably the same amount, inflation, salary raises. But this thing would keep everything budget neutral in our bond payment account through the term of any bond issuance for the project. So those are the funds that would be used in the combinations to fund this project. And I'm open for any questions if anybody has any on what we're proposing to do here to keep the City Hall project, whichever method is selected, budget neutral for that line item.
Anybody have any questions? I have one, Jack. When do we have to make a determination that?
Well, that's the question we'll bring up and discuss more completely in our work meeting, but if we're going to do this, we're going to need to make a decision by no later than our second meeting in June. The reason being is that if we issue general obligation bonds, the project can be petitioned by the public. They can file a petition for a referendum for the project within 30 days after approval. And if they get 5% of the registered voters voted in the 2024 election, which would be approximately 140 approved signatures, then we would have to have a referendum to issue those bonds. If that's the case, we want to have the referendum on the November ballot, so we wouldn't have to pay for a special election. To get it on the November ballot, we have to have it to the county. They really want it by the end of July, but it probably could be extended to the 11th of August. So that would be one deadline we would need to meet. The other thing is, too, we're going to do this, we need to do it. The longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to cost. So it's important to make a decision, at least in which direction we're going to go.
The way I look at it here right now, Jack, is that something has to be done. Regardless if we get a bond issue or not, this building is falling down to the point that it needs work on it now. Do we have cash to Band-Aid it over? Or would we still have to bond?
No, it depends on what we do. If we just want to say we're just going to address the immediate needs, maybe that's a new roof, fix the ventilation problems, not do any siding, not address the windows and doors, not address the ADA stuff. We've got enough cash to do probably about $1.5 million. We wouldn't have to issue any bonds for. So again, that's the other option too. We just address the very basic needs and hope that'll last us. And then in another 10 years, we'll be talking about this again, but the cost will be significantly higher.
Any other comments? Scott, did you have one?
No, I was just confirming August 11th is when we'd have to have the signatures in to get it on referendum and the November ballot.
That's correct. That would have to be
August 11th.
to the county. That would be the drop dead date.
And we're going to have another open house on this.
I think we should definitely have another open house on it. We can discuss that date on our work meeting. Wald will be here again to answer any questions too about the project.
And I do kind of agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that I think this is an opportunity that we may not get again as a city if we decide to go the bond route, and it doesn't have to be, the full $7 million, even if we're doing it for the $4.7 million and saving some of that money for another project. We're not going to get another opportunity as a city to do that again, likely in a very long time. So if we want to keep that option on the table, we need to take some action.
You're correct. This is almost like the perfect storm that's coming together to enable us to do this in this manner and not place any real burden on the taxpayers, at least in terms of what the project cost is relatively to what the line item amount for this is going to be.
So I heard a figure before that right now, what do we pay on our bonds?
We paid $601,000 last year in bond payments.
So if we bonded this out and went the route we're talking about, what would we be paying?
Well, that's the other question we'll have to answer too when we structure the bonds. If we did a 20-year bond at 4.75%, our bond payment, I believe, would be $390,000 a year. If we did a 15-year at 4.75%, it would be $478,000. I think overall that would result in a net savings of $790,000 in interest over that period of the loan. So I think we could do the 478, which would be $123,000 less than what we're paying now, and save a lot of interest cost.
This is Karen Jack. I'll take a stab at something. I'm guessing the 2018 bond, the 2020 bond, and the 2021 bond had higher interest than what we'd be paying on our new bond.
I'm not sure what we're paying on those.
Okay.
Right now, we were told if we did a bond issuance, we'd be looking at about 4.5, so I just bumped that up to 4.75 just to be a little more conservative in that. But I do not know what interest we're paying on those old bonds.
Okay. I'm guessing it's going to be high. It was higher.
Do you know where we AA+ on those previous bonds?
Yes, we got a very good bond rate.
And we're still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So do we know we'll be coming to our workshop potentially?
They will be.
And I know that some of the feedback we received was potentially people were, as long as it didn't increase their taxes, they were comfortable with potentially a new building, but not wanting to spend and make for this Taj Mahal type building. And so maybe those will be conversations to have with Wolt as well, what that looks like.
And the other thing too, the cost estimates we have from the architects are conservative, and by conservative, I mean they're on the high side, and it's the potential there is to have this bid come in a lot less. So the way we would do this, we'd still borrow a minimum of $5 million, but we would reverse our funds on the back side of that. So we'd spend all the bond funds first, and if it came in at $650, then we would have $700,000 left to allocate somewhere else.
And they added, I think it was like a 30% buffer. They had quite a bit of a buffer in there to kind of calculate in the all-in cost of what that looked like.
That's correct. There are a lot of the soft costs in that covers.
Including the, potential tear down of this building if that's the direction we go. So there's just so much more to that number than what it appears. And so I just think those conversations with Wold will be important.
That's correct. That's not a final bid cost to say we will do this for this amount. This is an estimate to give us the guide so we can work with this and stay within those cost constraints and hopefully come in at a lower cost.
Yeah, and I think during that, if I could, Mayor, during that open house, we had individuals say, well, there's always change orders, there's always add-ons. I think what they're talking with that soft cost is to prepare for something that might be like that. So it's not like, aha, let's get the city, and throw a bunch of change orders at them that they got to pay. They're trying to build that in, is what my understanding was.
Yeah, and then too, in a project like this, which is, in our perspective, it's a huge project, but in big construction, it's a small project. If you got good specs designed, you've got a design that has no mistakes in it or very little mistakes that have to be changed. The only reason you should have any overruns if the city institutes those by a city ordered change order. So we got good construction management, you got good specs, you got good plans, then the chances of overruns are going to be small and minimal. The biggest thing that I've seen in projects like this, it's even like building a house. You get something built, you look at the plan in 2 dimensions, you start seeing things in 3 dimensions, and somebody wants to change something halfway through the build. That's where you run into those types of costs.
Yeah, and if I could too, so in that open house, there was an individual in the back that said they could build this building that we wanted for $1 million. I took the opportunity to go down and drive by that building he was talking about. The foundation was pre-existing. It used to be J-Con's excavating site, so the foundation was already in, the underground, there was already a well, septic, all that was there already. So all they did was re-stick frame a building and put siding on it. You know, we're talking a little more complex, brick and mortar, things of that nature. So that's kind of where that cost comes from, right? So just wanted to share because it seemingly was very loud about this was very inflated compared to what they had done, and it's not apples to apples. So.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll close this. Move on to item number 5, set the agenda for the June 2nd, 2026 work meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council workshop meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June the 2nd, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. Staff recommends that the following items be included on the agenda: City Hall renovation and new construction discussion of charitable gambling proceeds, and discussion of an election law change for early voting, and any other items as requested by council. Staff recommends that those be the 3 specific items and any other items you wish to add.
This is Jenny. Could we potentially add it to our workshop discussion, talking about that range within neighbors in terms of when the city's sending out information and disseminating information, and potentially increasing that to something like 1,000 feet or more?
And we could just make that a little ordinance amendment discussion and get that ready to get it changed.
Thank you.
It's the second time this has happened, isn't it? Yeah.
Anybody else have anything they want to put on the agenda? Can we have other that night? Or do we have to have it written down?
You can bring them up and we can add them when we adopt the agenda if you'd like.
Well, there's always an option.
Yeah, there's got to be another option. So that's it? Okay, we'll go on to.
Do we need a motion on that?
Have a motion.
Motion on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can make the motion. This is Scott. I move to approve the agenda items for the June 2nd, 2026 City Council work meeting with the addition mentioned by Council Member Ladd.
This is Jenny, I second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any other discussion?
No, I just want to say, I think those 2 topics alone will be enough to take up tonight, right? That Wold thing will be, I think we'll have even more people than we had before now that it's starting to be heard about, so.
Yeah, we'll see you all on June 2nd.
You're probably right. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. Jenny?
Jenny, I.
Scott, aye.
Karen, I.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. The motion passes. We go on to the favorite part of the night, will be item number 6. Jim Windingstad, 20-year service recognition. You want me to read it, Jack, or you going to read it?
I'll be more than proud to read it.
Okay.
Jim Windingstad began his employment with the City of Columbus on May the 8th, 2006, and was promoted to Public Works Director on June 27th, 2020. During his tenure, Jim has assisted the transition of Columbus from a township to a city, was instrumental in the development and growth of the public utility system and construction of a new public works facility, planned and implemented improvements to the city street network, and other public facilities, have been involved in a multitude of projects and activities that have improved and maintained the infrastructure of the City of Columbus. Columbus City Council formally recognizes and expresses its sincere appreciation for his contributions to the city and his 20 years of service. And with that, I would like to recommend that Resolution 2609 be approved, which recognizes his efforts, which is also framed and on your desk for presentation to Jim after the vote.
Can't hear you on that last part. What'd you say?
It's framed.
Oh, okay.
After the vote, he said.
Oh, we have to do the motion first? Okay. Well, I'll make the motion. I, Ron Hanegraaff, move to adopt Resolution 26-09, a resolution acknowledging 20 years of service for Public Works Director Jim Windingstad.
Scott, or Rob, you second it. Go ahead.
All right, we
Rob, I'll second. Thanks, Scott.
have a motion on the floor. It's seconded. Any other comments? Well, I have a comment. I got to thank you for all your work, and I know it's got to be hard because you've gone through a lot of councils, 3 mayors, and probably once a month you get somebody complaining about something, you know. So anyway, we'll take the vote. Hopefully it'll go through. Jenny?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
And I.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. Thank you, Jim. Really, it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Can you stand a little up like that so I
Wasn't Jim's too tall. How are we gonna do this, Ron?
Well,
It's a height difference.
It's your camera. It's your camera. Stand on the step. Thanks, Jim. Thank you for your service. 20 years is a long time.
It is. Doesn't feel like 20, but
It doesn't.
it does not.
Well,
So Jack, is Jim our longest employee here at the city?
He's our longest tenured employee by several years.
By
Thank-
several years.
Thank you.
well, again, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
We're on to item number 7.
Columbus Lines temporary liquor license. City of Columbus has received a liquor license application from the Columbus Lines for a temporary on-sale retail intoxicating liquor license for the upcoming Columbus Fall Fest event on Saturday, September 19th, 2026. The premises will be located on city property as exhibited in the site plan in the application. The Anoka County Sheriff's Department has conducted a background check on the applicant, Eugene Severin, and the background was positive and did not identify any liquor law violations. Please excuse me, I did not mean to say Eugene, I meant to say Gina. Pursuant to City Code Section 4-507.A, the city may grant a temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license in association with a social event sponsored by a club, charitable, religious, or other nonprofit corporation that has existed for at least 3 years. Lines were established in 1977 and are in good standing with the Minnesota Secretary of State. Staff recommends the City of Columbus approve the temporary liquor license for September 19th, 2026 at 16319 Middle River Boulevard, Columbus, Minnesota.
Mr. Mayor, I can make that motion if you would like.
well, I got a question here before we go on to it. Does this mean they got to serve right here by City Hall, or can they serve in the park?
We can probably, the parks, this whole thing is addressed as 16319. The park has no actual physical address, so it's included under this address. So we can make a determination to allow that to happen in the city park if that's where the sale needs to be, if we have the proper way it's all fenced off, access is controlled, just the way we did over here when we had it last fall over in, next to the fire department.
I don't know, is that Fall Fest you guys talking about that?
Yeah, so I know Gina's in the back and she's kind of stuck through this whole night with us. So Gina, do you want to come up for just a second? I know that we had talked about potentially with some of the changes that are going on to Notre Dame and to the parking lot being paved, potentially moving the band and maybe the beer garden over to that side. So I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit, potentially.
Good evening, everyone. Congratulations. Yeah, we're pretty open. I know that the mayor would like to have it on the other side of the street, so the band can be over there and that sort of thing. We actually have a meeting next week with the actual Fall Fest committee for the Lions to see like where they're comfortable doing, because we're so short-staffed, splitting up our people on both sides of the road is kind of what I would like to see if they're okay with doing before we determine if it's going to be over there or over here. But if that's where you want it and that's where the committee wants it, we would make it work. So
Well, it's up to committee.
that's kind of where I'm at, so.
Now, it's just a thought.
No, right, and there would be more room over there, and I know that it's going to be paved and that sort of thing, and if we have to get more help, we would make that work to get more help, so.
Thank you. Any other questions? Rob?
Yeah, and maybe this is a question for Megan. So as far as the alcohol and the intoxicating, whatever, they have to stay within that fencing, so that we couldn't make like a ordinance for that day that someone wanted to get a Bloody Mary and stroll through the vendor section, Is that not okay?
The easiest
sure
answer is
yeah.
no. So your city code specifically prohibits distribution or drinking of alcoholic beverages within a city park unless a permit or license has first been obtained. So you can have the beer garden in the park. There is a specific process to allow open carry. It has to be adopted by interim ordinance. So there's a way to do it. It's a fairly significant process, and we would just have to coordinate with state alcohol licensing to facilitate that.
Yeah, I'm not saying put it like by the bouncy houses,
That gets into a bigger conversation.
Open carry is not typically what we do here. We have a confined area that they must remain in, so.
It gets into a little bit more complex question that Gina and I kind of texted back and forth about earlier as well, because I know last year with the beer garden, it was, you have to be 21 to be in the beer garden, but a lot of people have little kids, and so they want to be listening to the band, and they maybe want to have a Truly or a drink or whatever that looks like, and they really can't access if they have their kids with them. And so is there any flexibility within the beer garden itself or what that looks like to allow adults with their kids to be in the beer garden? Because we've always kept it very, very separated and strict for good reason. And I know that the Lions hold the insurance for the event. So I don't know what council thinks about that.
Yeah, if we open it, if we still have a fenced off area or roped off area, but allow minors in there so that they can be with their parents or listen to the band or whatever the case may be. Because last year we did try to separate it where if you're in this section, you have to be an adult. And over here, you can listen to the band and such, but then we had parents that were just not even abiding by that, and they just took their drinks out there and were not listening to the security at all, and it became a thing. So if we can make the area bigger and allow minors into that area, that probably would make it more friendly for everyone. But not open roam. That would be wonderful, but other cities do that. We would love that, but, baby steps.
There's a big fence around the whole park.
Get a big rope?
I'm kidding.
So I don't know if that's something.
This is certainly something we can explore.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that.
Okay, so we covered that, right? You want to make the motion?
Yep, I will. I, Karen Fleming, move to adopt Resolution 26-10, a resolution approving the issuance of a 1 to 4 day temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license to the Columbus Lions Club for the 2026 Fall Fest event.
This is Jenny, I second.
A motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. Jenny?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Karen, aye.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. The vote passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you very much, Gene.
Yeah, thank you, Gina.
Thanks.
Before we go on to D here, can we go back one, Jack? Go back to section 5, put on the agenda. Do you think we have time to work on the gun ordinance?
On the what ordinance?
The gun ordinance for the rifles?
That-
Deer hunt?
Yeah, we can add that to the work meeting.
That'll be at what?
We can add that to the work.
Okay, you can add it. We don't
Yeah.
have to do anything, it's
No,
added.
I mean, we'll just put it on there. I mean, it's the others, so we'll just adopt that or we can adopt it as a change now, or we can just adopt it when we adopt the agenda.
Do you need a motion to adopt it or no, just conversation?
Bring it up.
Yeah, we'll just,
Wednesday or Tuesday night.
when we adopt the agenda, we'll just add that.
Other. That's under other, right?
Yep.
We'll go to item D, the city engineer's report. Brian?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Brian Bachmeyer, Consulting City Engineer. I was just going to provide a report on the Notre Dame construction schedule. We had the pre-construction meeting last week. The work will be done during the month of June. They'll have the project pretty well wrapped up by the end of June, the first week, next week. They will be doing the removals associated with the realignment of Notre Dame, adjacent to the park where it intersects with the county roadway. They will also be regrading the area for the realignment and prepping the park parking lot for paving. Going into the next week, the week of June 8th, they will be removing the pavement on the balance of Notre Dame, the mill, just milling off the top 2 inches. And they will be paving the parking lot and then the realignment area with the base course paving, including the parking lot driveway approaches to City Hall. So that'll be done next week, or the week of June 8th. The week of June 15th, they will be applying the oil treatment to the base on Notre Dame. That reduces reflective cracking into the wear course. That's called a Texas under seal. It's primarily a seal coat kind of application, so they'll be doing that during the week of June 15th. And then the week of June 22nd, they'll be paving the entire roadway and shouldering graveling the shoulders. And that'll pretty much complete the project. The final week of June 29th, they'll be just doing some cleanup and striping work that'll have to be done after the pavement cures a little bit. So over a 4-week period, they'll pretty much be able to complete the project.
They're going to go from the south to the north?
South to the north, yeah, pretty much.
Are they, so they'll
They're
get,
going to start with the realignment area and then they'll work towards the north.
well, when they start paving, though, it'll go the same way? Or is 165th going to be a detour, right?
Correct.
During that period?
Yep.
So will they do that whole area before they start going north? Or are they going to do some Kettle River all the way to Broadway paving?
I would have to ask clarification on that. Generally, they want to minimize the amount of a cold joint that runs down the middle of the roadway, so they generally will pave, 1 lane for a period length, and then they'll go back and pave the other lane just to kind of minimize, and then start with a new construction joint and go to the next section of roadway.
Okay.
Is that going to overlap Columbus Elementary a week?
I think they're out of school the 4th, is it?
8th, yeah, the 4th.
So that'll be out.
Yeah, so they won't be doing the removals till the 8th.
Perfect. Thanks. Good point.
Is that it, Brian?
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I had one thing for Brian, if I could. I texted Ron this last week, but completion on the tennis courts, when are we looking for that to be?
I'll Jack handle that.
Is that through the engineer? Is it through Jack or you?
So basically, it's been cold.
Yeah.
And now it's starting to warm up, so they have to have so many consecutive days above, I don't remember what temperature is.
40.
40.
Okay.
So from the conversation and the email that I had going back and forth, they were talking starting in June. So early June was the date that they gave us, but
Okay.
early June could be the 12th or the 1st. So
Sure.
we don't know for sure, but now that it's warmer outside, the temperatures are up, then they feel comfortable.
So as far as that painting goes, that's done, then is it our responsibility to put the nets back up, or is that them?
That's all part of the project.
That's was part
So
of
there'll
it.
be new nets, and then
Cool.
pickleball nets and all of that stuff will be put up as
Mhm.
part of that project.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of tennis this year, and then pickleball people are everywhere. Take up the tennis courts, and yeah.
So I got a question about that real quick. Are they're gonna paint it? The next thing they're gonna do is paint it, then they're gonna throw the seal coat over it, or they put the seal coat then paint it?
The paint is the seal coat, so.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, cool. So they just paint it, and they'll do the multiple colors, and then, paint in the lines and do that kind of stuff, then it's done.
I know I went over and looked at it. It's kind of rough up there in that corner if you get a chance to.
I've walked it many times. You won't notice that. Once they paint it, it seals all of that. It'll look smooth.
Oh, okay. All right. I just wondered how that operated,
They dump it on the base, and they squeegee it around.
Oh.
And so it fills all of those voids. It looks just like you're seal coating your driveway when they spray it on and run the squeegees around. That's how they do it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So, Brian, that's all you got then? Yes. We'll go to the city attorney, Megan.
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing to report.
Oh, well, thank you. That was quick. And we go to the mayor and the city council, item number 3, mayor and city council. Jenny.
For council, I think I touched on my different resident questions and things like that already, so I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Scott?
No report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Karen?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so Ron and I and Jack have a meeting with the Joint Fire Board next Wednesday. So we'd invested some money into a fire engine that we had recently we're likely going to get $20,000 for if we were just going to kind of sell it off as scrap. But we're looking at getting $105,000 for it as a bid towards it, and we'd actually end up with a net profit of $50,000 after the work. So just wanted to share that, and I assume it's going to get approved on Wednesday, but we'll find out.
I know it was one of the trucks that was sitting out here all winter. Then we got one more that has to be sold, I think, after that.
Yeah, so I thought that was good. We could put a little money into it and then recoup some more money back for the.
That was done at Blaine Brothers too, so a business right in town. And is that it? Okay, and I don't have a report. We'll go on to EDA report. There's nothing to report there because we didn't have a meeting on that. The Personnel Committee report.
With Personnel Committee, we're in the process of performing the city administrator's performance review, and council members should receive an email this week detailing instructions on that process and submitting their performance review evaluations back. So you should look for that here in the next few days.
Thank you. The next one is the Parks Board report. We did have on the 19th of May, we had a Park Board meeting, and there were 3 members there, but Matt Rivard, the guy from FLA that was going to build the dugouts, was there, and he had planned to start the dugouts the week before, and it rained, and he had all these guys ready, so that got put off, and it's going to get put off until sometime this summer. He thought he could get it in, but he can't get it in. And the second thing is he may not be able to do all 3 fields, and the reason being is he had the expectation that he'd be getting some of the concrete free from the vendors in Columbus, but they told him that he'd already donated enough to other nonprofits, and so they couldn't handle it. So he's got to pick up that bill, so it's going to be a tight squeeze, but he thinks he can get 2 in before the summer's over. Also, we didn't have much more to talk about there, except that we went out afterwards, and Jack, I got to ask you a quick question. Was it the Boy Scouts that was going to donate trees?
Cub Scouts.
Cub Scouts. And we went out and looked, and we don't really have a spot to put them, the Park Board.
I talked with Brad. He had one location kind of out in the right field that he thought might work. I did talk with the lady and told her that the plan had been approved, but the location hadn't been selected, and to get up with us to coordinate that.
Well, we went out there and looked and thought it might have been a tight squeeze or whatever. But the other thing we did, and just to let everybody know that we went out and looked, we had one of the playground equipment had to be removed, 2 of them. Did you remove that other one, the long one?
Remove the little, I don't even know.
Yeah, I know what that was.
And then one of the spinners.
Oh, okay. But we had another one that was questioned, was that long? Wave,
I think it's called.
yeah, something like that, but the playground equipment is getting pretty old, and we're gonna have to figure out some way to fund that, and hopefully we get that apartment building on Hornsby, we can get some more money to replace some of that equipment, but they were questioning whether we should keep that or not, the park board, for safety reasons, that wave board. When we went out there that day after the park board meeting, there had to be 5 kids on it playing, so nobody got hurt. So
We inspect it monthly for sure, but every time Brady or Bill or somebody's over there, we take a quick walk through and make sure that everything is as it should be.
Well, did that one piece that was laying over, I wish we could describe it, it's kind of like a teeter-totter kind of a deal. Was that vandalized or did it just fall over?
I think at some point, equipment is not designed for
Little kids.
bigger kids, you know what I mean? So I think if you get an adult on there and they're bouncing back and forth, it's not necessarily made for that, especially at, 15 years old. So, I'm certain that more than likely that's probably what happened, but who knows? They're old, things wear out.
Yep, that's true.
Test for that.
Tell Bill and Brady when they're over there to stay off of them.
It's their break pad though. We're going to item number 7, the Planning Commission report. Yeah?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. May 20th, Planning Commission had the public open forum for Fishing for Life. We covered everything that they had covered in that, so no need to go further with that. There was also discussion over JURSAC, is that right? JURSAC?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, sure. Trucking, there was some discussion back and forth with staff. They tabled that to the next Planning Commission, looking for a little more information, and we'll see what happens at the next Planning Commission. If it clears out, it'll come before us then.
Okay. Well, thank you, Scott. Public Works report. Jim?
Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. City Administrator's report. Chad?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We'll go on to announcements and reminders. City Council work meeting, June 2nd, 2026 at 5:30 PM. The Planning Commission, June 3rd, 2026 at 6 PM. The Rice Creek Watershed District, June 8th, 2026 at 9 AM, Blaine, Minnesota. City Council regular meeting, June 10th, 2026 at 6 PM in the Rice Creek Watershed District on June 10th, 2026 at 9 AM, Mounds View City Hall. Anybody want to call for an adjournment?
This is Scott. I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
It's Jenny, a second.
We got a motion on the floor to adjourn the meeting. We'll start off, no questions, nothing. We'll go off with Jenny.
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Karen, aye.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. Meeting's closed, ended at 8:05.